um, is another practical one. So what I wanted to do is I started with one of these Samlex devices. Sorry, basically, very commonly available device for hams. They're about $120, $130. But this one specifically is the 35 amp version with the 2 meters on the front, which is kind of nice. The voltage doesn't really help, but the current it shows. But the way it comes out of the factory, it has these screw terminals in the back, which is kind of awkward. And so instead what I wanted to do was to add power poles to it. So fortunately, on Amazon, found this Chinese knockoff distribution made by this company called, I can't pronounce it, but it's the F1011. And the nice thing about it is it comes with a nice metal enclosure, 6 power poles, and as you can see, there's actually screws that holds the enclosure together. So you can take this thing apart without using a heat gun and a screwdriver. And the actual devices are $33 on Amazon. And so what I wanted to do was to create this setup right here where you actually mount the power poles just directly on the back of the Samlex so that you can just plug in directly to it. It just makes a much cleaner setup to actually distribute things. So how did I go about that? Well, the actual screw terminals on the back of the Samlex come off very easily. There's a couple of square holes inside of it, and you just unscrew it and detach it. And the actual wires that were had connected to that, it's actually symmetric. There are just screw terminals on the inside of that. So you just detach those. And it turns out that the leads from the PCB that used to screw into those terminals is just perfectly long enough to actually do this mount on the back here. So all you have to do is to drill a couple of holes in the back of the Samlex, and then you can actually mount this 6-port power pole distribution right on the back. Of course, in order to do that, you need to get inside the device. So all you have to do is to undo the 4 screws at the edges, and you basically end up with this. So inside the box, there's a printed circuit board. The 6 power poles are just soldered directly to the PCB. And then there are these high current jumpers here. This thing is rated at 45 amps. So they actually added a couple of jumpers here to help distribute the current around so that everything doesn't just flow in the traces. And then, of course, the other nice thing is instead of gluing stuff in, they actually had the good sense to use these 3 screws here to attach the printed circuit board to the actual bottom of the mount. If you now were to peel it apart, you'll actually see that those jumpers actually attach from here out to the ends. And there's a nice area there that you can just put a nice big blob of solder and actually solder those 2 wires directly to those traces. And so you've got a high efficiency current transfer from the wires directly to the jumpers and in the rest of the board. And you can actually see these bumps here is where the power poles are actually soldered to the PCB, and that's what holds them. These 3 mounts here is where the screws that goes through the power pole or the PCB and then actually mount to that. And all you have to do is to drill like a 1/4 inch size hole in the bottom of the enclosure here to feed those 2 wires through. So that basically gives you the mount that actually is just nice and convenient right on the back of your Samlex here. Has the 2 screws that attaches the case, and then the 1 additional hole that you had to drill through there. So it's minimal drilling required, and just makes a very convenient setup for, you know, field day or whatever else you want to use out there. The one thing to remember is that nothing here is fused, right? So if you short circuit things, there's the only protection that you have is actually the short circuit protection that's built right into the power supply. But there is actually, or at least they claim, that there is short circuit protection built directly into this power supply as well as current limiting. There's at least some manner of protection. And of course, all of our leads are always properly fused. So nothing too terribly bad can happen, right? The magic smoke comes out of the other thing, not out of the power supply. Right. Actually, you know, the meter is I think the one with the meters is like $135 at HRO last time I checked. Takes about another $30 to add the power poles to the back, but I just think it makes for a much more convenient, and it is a 35 amp device, so you just plug the radio straight in there and there you are. So that's my little 10-minute spiel on how to add power poles to your Samlex. Any questions? If there are no questions, appreciate you sticking around for our Nerdfest today. Hopefully you enjoyed all of our talks. I certainly did. Very, very informative. And we hope to see you all at the Adams County Fairground a week from tomorrow, right? A week from tomorrow, door open at 9 o'clock. And all kinds of cool door prizes and everything else. And food. There, we actually have people lined up to do food. So save your appetite for the Hamfest. With that, thank you very much, and we'll see you all again next month for RMHAM University, when we're going to talk about digital communications on VHF and UHF.